Thank you. I would like to invite two very experienced people who work at the cross section of AI and biology and bioengineering. One is Dr. Kashif Riaz. He's originally from Minnesota, so we're grateful. And I've known Dr. Riaz for over 4 decades from Pakistan. And the other one is Dr. Waqas Khalid, another very experienced practitioner of bioengineering. So Dr. Riaz, he's from Minnesota. He did his PhD in artificial intelligence and linguistics, and has been in Minnesota, I think, for over 30 years now. And he is the Vice President of Architecture and Cloud Engineering at Ameriprise Financial. He works on their AI solutions with cloud and data on cloud and data solutions. And he's the science advisor for many AI startups. He is here. He flew in especially for this session, so thank you very much. And the other person joining us is Dr. Waqas Khalid. He's a scientist at NASA. He's a PhD in physics. He teaches physics in UC Berkeley, and he is a PI, which is a principal investigator at the UC Berkeley's California Institute for Quantitative Biosciences. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll start off our discussion about AI in medicine with Dr. Riaz. So you're familiar with IBM Watson's AI algorithms, and you work with that, and you know the role that plays in medicine. Can you tell us how we got here, AI in medicine, and really briefly, what do you foresee in the coming few years?
I'm glad that a little bit earlier the whole idea of data came into play, and the whole idea that AI sort of came a little bit more further along was in late 1990s and 2000 when data became important, and there's a lot more data to be generated. More statistical techniques came along, and then we started talking about, okay, I could use AI to do some text processing and other things in that space. But really what it became an evolution that what we're seeing right now is the hardware piece of it. And the hardware has changed the GPUs as we are using for video games from NVIDIA. That is the thing that made generative AI possible. That is the thing that we can talk about the large language models. When I say large, it really is billions and billions of data points we work through it. Coming to your question about IBM Watson. So my first introduction to IBM Watson actually was at a time in my graduate school. The whole idea was that, okay, you go from 0 to 1 in engineering solutions, but how can you solve societal problems like you go from 0 to 2, like hunger or other things. So IBM Watson sort of came in play, and its role on AI was in jeopardy, if people remember that, when it beat all Jennings and things like that. And they took it and they deployed it at many different places. One thing, they used a data set, and I believe it was from MSK, that is a cancer hospital in New York, I believe, right?
And there is a confusion.
Right. And then it was deployed at the Mayo Clinic. And since I'm in Minnesota, I did my internship there, so I knew a lot of people over there also. So what it did, that it used what they called cognitive computing and started and it farther down again and again to a specific thing about a cancer, right? Or a specific type of a cancer. So they had to calculate data, annotate the data for that particular reason, and train the system and bring the linkages across these data points to make sure that the right answer was given. I was at IBM's, I think it was in Astoria, Queens, in New York. We were there, and they showed something, and an example or a case study. And I believe that what it came along, that how IBM Watson was able to predict the disease better than a physician could. And it was because that a physician is sort of looking at it and saying, okay, I know this, and I believe it was around Kawasaki disease. But what Watson was able to look into PubMed. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of you are aware of that. A big volume of data, and was able to figure it out that this particular child in this case had redness in the eye, and that would sort of predict something there. So he was able to figure that out.
In the early days, it was mostly for diagnosis.
Yes.
So now, in the coming years, what do you envision it as? Dr. Faraz Ali was mentioning.
Dr. Faraz,
in drug discovery, etc. What do you envision in the next 5 years, 10 years? So, especially people who want to really invest in it, what do they look for?
I think that what has, as we are moving forward in that space, the growth is in terms of the number of computations available to figure out the combinatorics. That can happen much more faster. And the amount of prediction can happen. So you can take in a lot of data, you can process a lot of data, and you figure things out, and then you should be able to say that, okay, this particular drug with this kind of target, because all AI is about fitting a target function, and this drug with, and I can do all kind of computations in that space to figure it out much more faster, right? And this AI, along with quantum computing that is coming our way, it is actually going to change the game quite a bit. So new drug discoveries are important. AI assistants are important, that they should be able to figure it out that, okay, these are the questions being asked, and this is the data that I can figure out that these are the possible things that could go wrong in that space. I do know that a number of physicians find that they have, after they see a patient, they have to write notes, right? And that becomes a lot of problem for a lot of physicians to be able to automatically summarize all the dictation is happening at the same time, and using AI to figure it out, the facial expressions, because you have that available also, that if someone is even lying or not to a doctor, so all that is possible.
We have that available. We're using it now in Kaiser. Not the facial recognition though.
Yes.
Where the app just listens to what our interaction and then throws out a very nice clinical note that we can then copy and paste into our electronic medical record. So changing tracks a little bit. So when we talk about cutting edge bioengineering, the point, someone who is right at the edge, the sharp edge of the bioengineering frontier is Dr. Waqas Khalid. And Waqas, can you, what are you working on first, so you can introduce what your work is? And at the same time, what can AI do for you in your?
Okay. Hi everybody, how you doing? My name is Waqas. I'm a scientist at Berkeley, and I work in nanotechnology. So we make tiny little devices that we can see, and then we show a little graph and say, oh, did you see the blip in the graph? That's what we did. And they're like, oh, this is great. So I work on the forefront of bioengineering, biosensing, detecting diseases, stuff like that, energy storage, and semiconductor chip manufacturing, forefronts. But this is my father. He had a massive stroke 2 years ago, and you can see that he lost almost half of his brain thanks to COVID. And the doctors told me that, good luck, he'll be alive for a couple of days. So I prepared for the funeral and everything, and he did not die. He survived. And the question was then, how are you going to keep him alive? What kind of quality of life are you going to give him? And, what is it? Like you say somebody's life in today's modern world where you can open some skull and then put him in a bed and tell him, wait for your death. Or are you going to do something about it? So, next slide. What I want from AI is to tell me, read my father's thoughts, okay, and assist him in moving his body and help him live a normal life. Can go Watson, I'm going to do it for me. Where is AI now? So, what I did in my lab was that we built an exoskeleton from my father. A little Iron Man suit. The only thing he cannot do with that is he cannot fly. I think that's a good thing. So, human body is composed of a bunch of different parts. you can see there's the brain, there's neurons, there's all these little systems. And the speaker before us also suggested that hundreds of billions of dollars were invested only on one part of the human body. So if I want to build something comprehensive for him, I need to basically conquer the world first, take all the wealth, and then do something. Or I have to figure out a more comprehensive way of delivering that information and that solution, which is accessible to masses at large, right? So for that, I need an exoskeleton that can have something that he can wear, looks cool as well, and AR glasses that can kind of see what he's seeing, do what he's doing, and tell him what's around him. Because he's something called left leg. I don't know if you guys doctors know that. So he basically eats the plate on the right side and doesn't eat on the left side. So I rotate the plate, and he yells at me that why did you put more plate food in? A bunch of people who know me here know that happens all the time. So then I need something that can move his arms, wrists, knees, and ankles. Okay, how do we do that? So, we have to have something that can measure the brain waves. Nothing like Elon Musk's, invasive tongue where you just make the brain a little mushy thing and the guy's almost, on the last leg and this is the best they could do with him. We want something that is going to be invasive in a non-invasive fashion. Invasive to your cognition and not to your actual physical boundaries. Okay? So, we basically built a helmet, I don't know if you know Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, so Shredder had a helmet like that. And we got augmented reality glasses that could do that. Okay? And then if you go to the next slide, then we have we built this in our lab actually. We have a software that can actually measure your thoughts with electrodes on your skull. And we can then train it to kind of see what you're thinking. And if you're trying to move your body generally creates specific brainwave patterns that can move your body. So the AI comes into play here where it's going to understand that you're trying to move your body and complement your thinking process and facilitate your now non-working body so that you can work with mechanical means. And then you also have to have some sort of electrical stimulation on your body so that the muscles get stimulated and then you can have a neural feedback on your brain and you can understand how the neuroplasticity works. We may be very advanced in modern science, but we don't know anything about it. But, that's what I figured out with my father's story. I'm a scientist in, nano stuff, and we do some crazy stuff in my world.
Have you studied biology?
No. But my PhD was in making biosensors. So I have, and then the marriage between a tech person and a bio person, I tried, did not work.
Yeah.
I tried for 10 years. But I had to learn a lot of biology myself. And the idea was that in my world, a DNA is a molecule, a protein is a molecule. But for biologists, if I say that, they just cringe and they want to just kill me for that. So it's just the perspective of how people look at things, right? So that's where AI comes into play. How do you match and mix all these different interdisciplinary research work and combine it into something that's more productive, more cost-effective, more scalable for masses to produce? So we kind of, wrote our own algorithm with our own electronics of how we can do, understanding of human thoughts. Now, this tool will give you insight in your head. Now we can use this technology for creating gender bias, ethnic bias, and also how people come from different backgrounds, how they think, and how can we basically differentiate them. So it's a very personalized. It's like how Apple and Google know what you do on your phone with your clicks and stuff and your buying habits, but we would know everything about you. Okay, next. No, I'm not one of those villains from one of those movies, but, So we have our own algorithm and stuff that do that, keep going. And then, we got augmented reality glasses to monitor your vision and see what you're doing and what you're seeing and tell you what you're doing and seeing as well. And then arms that will move you around. And then, wrists that will move you around. So different body parts, we complement your body. It's like, when you go to your car mechanic and it replaces different things, we could do that. Put things on you and then control them as well if your brain's not properly working. So, the other way.
So this is a nice mixture of bioengineering,
Yeah,
computer science, biology.
everything.
Right? So now you have this distinction of working both within the US and Sweden and other places. You raised millions of dollars for this work. Now, for the purposes of our forum, people who are entrepreneurs who want to do this, who have an idea in their head, can you give us, both of you, 4 or 5 practical things that they can go and do? Or is your experience just that one-off thing that something happened, you were lucky, and that's it?
Do you want to go first?
Sure. So I'll focus on the medical side of things in that.
30 seconds.
Okay. So one thing that, as he has talked about, that my work is in linguistics and computer science and AI specifically, and within it morphologically complex languages. So that tends to be Urdu, Farsi, Arabic, Persian, Russian. All these your language models, they don't necessarily work for morphologically complex languages. So if you were trying to build an EMR, or if doctors who have worked in Pakistan or India or other places, you guys are writing stuff in English, right? Or medicine, but the directions are in Urdu. And how to compile and bring something together at an EMR system that is able to collect all that data with patients and work through that. I think that is something right on the, and someone has to bring that data together. I think we talked about that. What is all that data, right? As we talked about it, how am I going to collect all that? How am I going to annotate all that? And all that stuff. I think that is on the frontiers of language.
There's a lot of potential for looking back at South Asia and Pakistan,
yes,
and trying to deal with seeing how AI can be used there,
exactly,
EMR and all.
Right, because there is a big gap there where the current algorithms don't work. Well, actually, that was my dissertation. Was all the algorithms that exist today do not work. So therefore, they work in a different way.
Your experience, 30 seconds.
So to create a company, you see a problem and you solve it. That's it. And you just do it hard nose. You have to move mountains, you have to move the world, you do it. Okay, you gotta get more knowledge, you gotta find people, you gotta raise money, you do it. So I worked in Saudi Arabia for like a year in the university called House, England. They spent $20 billion to make university in the desert. I worked in Sweden with the chairman of the Nobel Prize Committee in chemistry, so who gets the Nobel Prize, he picks up every year and he's my friend. I worked in Canada, I worked in Ijaz, and the idea is this. I created a process where you can utilize already existing resources, billions of dollars of labs, billions of dollars of facilities all across the US, Department of Energy, academia, industry, partner with them, get that next check mark so that you can mitigate the scientific risk. Because I work in a very hardcore tech, like very fundamental molecular level. You develop that technology and then take it to market. So we go through 4 or 5 different phases of worlds to develop the technology that I've built over my career in the last 7 years. And the idea is that we create a new process called natural evolution of science and technology, where you have access to intellectual capital, physical capital, and instruments and resources required to do what you need to do. And if you want to do it, I can tell you, based on my experience, I've gone through like 1,000 students in my lab. People who want to do it, they get it done. They find a way to do it. People in, places like Gaza, they're surviving. The odds, if I put any one of us in there, is going to be very minimal, but they have to do it. They have to survive. They did it. And that's what we do too. Once you're held bound and getting something done, you can do that. It's a special breed of people that can make it happen. And this is something you can teach people, but it just comes from within mostly. That's what my experience is.
And then Waqas has a lot of experience in startups also, right? So Jadu?
Yes.
Not Jadu TV, Jadu, the startup Jadu.
Yes. Yeah. So based on the technology that I built, we have different applications that we use. We've kind of commercialized a few of those fronts. We are working with some industry partners to take the technology to market. The technology that we build, normal people don't see you, because it's just not visible to you. So it goes to B2B or industry partners, and then people could consistently see. For example, in my lab, we built a energy storage device that is the size of a postage stamp that would power your iPhone for 5 days. So we did AI, and we did a lot of material development, and we built something that is just too good to be true. So I don't look like an idiot when I showcase it to the world. So we're doing exhaustive, in-house critiques to figure out that the technology that we build will actually not fail us down the road. And if it works, then the energy problem of the world will be resolved. Then we've also built technology where with a drop of blood, you could do multiple blood tests in the palm of your hand in 3 minutes. Could you go down? I'm not blonde and I don't wear turtlenecks, but I'm saying that we've done it. You all know the reference.
So, just quickly finishing off since we're running out of time. Now, an important aspect of AI in medicine, especially, and what we see quite frequently now, is the element of ethics. So these algorithms, they're all inherently biased. So, for example, health insurance, and the unfortunate recent incident of the United Healthcare CEO, a lot of health insurances are using AI algorithms to decide whether they're going to provide care or deny care. And those algorithms have a certain bias also. And their bias is probably built towards maximizing profit for the insurance company, right? So how is that going to impact the upcoming AI surge in medicine? Who designs these algorithms? And what is the ethics behind it? Because you can spend a lot of money on it, you can invest your intellectual capital on it, but at the end of the day, if it's presumed to be unethical, then you'll lose everything.
In Trump era, I think ethics is a very abstract concept.
So it's a good question, right, from ethics perspective. And there is a distinction between ethics versus to be the governance of those models. Regulatory governance has nothing to do with ethics. If you are going to implement these algorithms in some way, a lot of these models, for example, we talk about deep learning or large language models, you cannot explain why things are happening. It is impossible to do that. So there are languages changing that, I can figure out maybe a line of thought because I can interpret it, I can explain these things. So therefore, at least the areas that I have worked in where there has to be regulatory compliance, in order to solve a problem, you are required to pick an algorithm for which you can explain things. So I think that is an important piece of it, that in the generative AI space, regulatory piece is very unclear, that how can we do that?
In medicine, regulations are very strong.
Yes,
exactly. Privacy, etc.
Exactly. FDA approvals and everything. So once you come up with an algorithm, it becomes the situation of indemnification that if you applied that algorithm and came through that and you made a wrong choice because there is never 100%, who is responsible for it?
Yeah. Your thoughts,
My thoughts on this is that, by the end of the day, the algorithms are being designed for us not to get sick. So there's one thing to cure somebody who's sick, and that's the world we live in, but the future is like preventative medicine, right? So insurance companies, in essence, want to create algorithms that will help you not to get sick so that they don't have to pay a lot of money to make you better. And that is in your interest as well, that if you don't get sick, then, you're perfectly happy and AI is doing its job. So in that regard, that is one aspect of ethics. Second is monetary requirements. So AI and ethics for the insurance companies is driven from monetary perspective, but for you it's driven from your healthy lifestyle perspective. But in the end, the goal is the same. If you don't get sick, you're happy and they're happy. And that's where ethics kind of come into play. And then, if you talk about ethics change with time as well. Back in the day, people used to take their shirts down so people could walk over, water, and that was considered very, ethical. And now you do that, they will kick you out. What are you doing, bro? So the bottom line is, yes, the ethics of the society all maneuver and they change with time. And in the last 30 years, you all have seen how ethics has changed in our lifetime. So when AI is generating things for your entertainment and for other things, then ethics is a whole different ballgame. And then, unfortunately, there is no standard or a yardstick that you could measure ethics against because different cultures have different ethics and different societies in the same culture have different ethics as well. So it has to be very inclusive in my regard. I'm talking very broadly, I guess now, but that's how we roll.
So thank you very much, and we've run out of time. But any question, one or two questions over there.
So I read a lot of different scientific research. I was actually bioengineering, bioinformatics before, and I noticed the Dr. Ali. I know he doesn't like being called that. The AAV thing is something that the Hutchinson Clinic is doing with oncology. And there's a lot of patent trolls. How do you deal with patent trolls when and all these larger companies who can't get sued when they're coming up with different algorithms, but you're coming up with something that's just as good, and you can get patent trolled or you can get it taken away from you? Like, how do you deal with this constant pressing?
It's a good question. by the way money, you can fight for your right, and that's why we have courts and legal system. It's a very drawn out battle. They can dry you out or buy you or eventually settle with you or just
I think the
I mean
so there is a point here to be made, which is that, right, there are two things to look through. There is data and then there is an algorithm, right? Who owns the data, right? I mean, so for example, just not talk about data for a sec, for medicine, Wall Street data is controlled by only a few organizations, right? I mean, and if there are any lawyers in the room, that there is data that is public data, but there are companies like Lexus or Thomson Reuters, they actually annotate the data and sort of becomes theirs. So therefore, it is how do you control the data, and then if you have made changes to the algorithm. So if you can play with those, a lot of room could be maneuvered in that space.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We've run out of time. I would love to take questions, but you can connect with Dr. Waqas and Dr. Riaz later on. And then just finishing, so after been practicing 20 years of medicine, am I going to be extinct in the next 5-10 years?
No.
I guess. No. No.
Yes.
you
No. To all the physicians, aspiring physicians, there's hope. But no, don't lose it. Thank you very much.